Hey everyone, this is the ETFinalScore.com preview show. I'm Trevor Peel, and with me as usual, Chris Perry and Travis Yoasting. We have a great show ready for you as we enter round 4 of the playoffs and still have many East Texas teams looking to continue their season past this week. Now, Chris, you got to see Mineola play last week in Forney. Tell us a little bit about that game.
It was very windy conditions at Forney, and both teams it really affected both teams. Joe Drennan, the head coach of Mineola, was talking to me saying that Mineola likes to throw the football. Even though they ran 50% of the 50 plays, they only threw about 8 times. They do like to throw, but you look at the conditions and you see what you have to work with, and you make it work, and that's what they did. Chance Perkins and Jeremiah Crawford did a terrific job moving the chains, getting first downs, and making plays. Mineola took the wind in the first quarter and the third quarter, which was a risk, because sometimes you like to have that win in the fourth quarter, but they were able to get up enough points, and then the one turnover they made that did allow Pilot Point to come back. And they had a great individual play on a little short pass into the wind with about a minute to play, and he was able to score the touchdown, and that's how they were able to win the game. A
lot of people from Mineola are hitting up us on Facebook. They're really excited about their team. This Saturday at 2 p.m. they play in Roy City against Pottsboro, a team that is 12-1. How do you see this game going?
Well, Pottsboro is going to be another tough opponent. They defeated Pilot Point. They were the district champions of that district. So that would assume to say that, okay, well, they're better than Pilot Point. Well, maybe not so fast. Pilot Point turned the ball over 4 times in that game against Pottsboro. But basically, what I've been looking at is that they don't do anything terrific, but they do everything well, which that's kind of a good formula to have at this time of year, because that means you really can't stop one thing on offense or one thing on the running, the passing, or whether their defense is going to carry them. They seem to do a lot of things really, really well. It's going to come down to, again, Mineola doing what they do, which is move the chains. That I was very impressed with Crawford and Perkins and their ability to get first downs and break tackles and keep drives alive, and they just can't turn the ball over. Last week, special teams massively impacted by the wind, and that kind of took one of their advantages away from them. I think if the wind is not as much as it is this time, I think that really puts special teams in Mineola's favor.
Well, Travis, Mineola is in the quarterfinals against Pottsboro, 2 p.m. Who do you have winning this game?
I think it's kind of a toss-up. Pottsboro is a great team. Mineola is also, they've proven to be a great team. It's going to be a question of whether Mineola's young skill players can step up in the biggest game of their lives so far.
Alrighty. And Chris, who do you think is going to come out on top of this game?
I think Mineola is feeling it, as they say. I mean, I just think that they're not playing just to make the playoffs. They're playing to try to win a state championship, and this is the next step. They've already gone further than any other team has since the 60s. So why not keep going?
Henderson is taking on Navasota, 2 p.m. Saturday in Lufkin. We will have coverage of this game. Both these teams are pretty much comfortable and know how to play in this type of game because they both have won state in the past 4 years. How do you see this game going, Travis?
Yeah, I think this is a potential state championship game, the way these two teams are playing, the way they've dominated some of their competition so far. Really, you look at it, Navasota beating Chapel Hill, it was a big win for Navasota to get them to this point, obviously, and it's going to be a great coaching matchup as well between Coach Castle and Fedor.
Now, how do you think the Lions are going to be able to knock off Navasota?
They've been able to knock off the other teams that we didn't expect them to knock off, and I think that's what makes Henderson such an intriguing matchup right now. We talk about it on paper. Navasota should win this football game, and they are loaded. But Henderson has been able to find a way to get it done, and it's tough. It's tough to pick the Lions, even though they've been able to win so many games because of Navasota and what they bring to the table offensively and defensively. But I mean, right now you'd be crazy not to pick Henderson with how they've been able to knock off all these teams.
Plus, that district, always seems to have a state championship.
Henderson's going to do it. It looks like Henderson's going to be able to do it this time. And you're right, talking about that district. That district has probably prepared Henderson very well for this postseason test.
So you're saying Henderson wins this game?
I still think Navasota wins.
Navasota? What about you, Travis?
Yeah, I'm going to have to lean towards Navasota.
Awesome. That is a game that we will have coverage on our Facebook and Twitter that you can be able to keep your eyes on for live highlights as well. Now, also, let's talk a little bit first, go back a little bit last week. Gilmer playing Gladewater at Lobo Stadium. Over 15,000 people showed up. This game was pretty much everything you expected. What did you think of it, Chris?
Well, I was following on Twitter, and it was back and forth, because I was covering a basketball game at the time. And I've heard, and I think I've actually confirmed that Gladewater had a chance to almost go ahead by 2 touchdowns, but they decided to the player decided to try to go down inbounds and run more clock and prevent Gilmer, and of course that ended up backfiring because Gilmer was able to take the ball and score, and that just shows you how explosive Gilmer is. That you give them you just give them an inch and they take a mile. I mean, it looked like Gladewater had it, and the Gilmer Buckeyes were able to come back and win the game. I called it months ago that I thought Gilmer was going to be the state champion, and I think right now they're just proving how good they are.
What do you think about that game, Travis?
Right, definitely lived up to the hype. Great crowd, great atmosphere, everything like that. And rarely do you get a game with that much hype actually live up to it. And for it to come down to the final second with Gilmer pulling it out, I mean it's just amazing. But you have to look at it. Like we were talking with Henderson and Navasota. That Gladewater-Gilmer game, that was probably the state championship game. Yeah,
and it was an incredible game if you got to see it. If not, we have all the videos at ETFinalScore.com. And let's talk about this week. Gilmer's playing Atlanta. Atlanta's a fast team. Gilmer's a fast team. What does Atlanta need to do to try to slow down the Gilmer Buckeyes?
Maybe, I don't know, give their bus a flat tire. I don't know. Really, based on the way they performed against them last time they played, I think Gilmer's going to win this one comfortably.
What about you?
You look at the score, it looks like Gilmer's the clear favorite. But then again, you also look at how well Atlanta's played this year, and you can't discount what they did to Tatum. I mean, they really took care of Tatum, and Tatum gave Gilmer problems. So, and we always say it's always tough to beat a team twice twice during the season. But right now, I would say Gilmer just seems like they're too tough. They're too tough to stop. Right now, they're moving towards a state championship.
So Gilmer taking on Atlanta. You pick Gilmer?
Yes.
Gilmer.
Same way. All righty. And again, those games will be on ETFinalScore.com, Facebook, and Twitter. We'll have live highlights again from Lobo Stadium at 7:30 p.m. on Friday. Let's head to one of our sponsors. When we return, let's talk about one of the Rose City football teams.
At Kelly Community Federal Credit Union, we have a monopoly on savings. So cruise on over to a Kelly Community branch today for big savings on loan rates and better earnings on deposits and investments.
At Kelly Community.
Welcome back. I'm Trevor Peele with Travis Yosting and Chris Perry. Like we talked about, John Tyler moving on to round 4. Now, last week they handled Rockwall Heath very easily. I mean, the team that only gave up 6 points prior to that game. Tell us a little bit about that game, Travis.
Yeah, really, it's a big factor was John Tyler jumping out early. They got a 14-0 lead before Rockwall Heath even ran an offensive play, and that kind of put Rockwall Heath behind the ball. They had to press a little bit and really could never really get into their game. And when they did finally score in the second half, John Tyler answered every single time and never let him get close.
Now, Chris, you've got to see Rockwall Heath throughout some time. What did you think about JT handling them so easily?
I was pretty surprised because I haven't seen Heath this year, but I got a chance to see him the last 2 years, and they've always been really good on offense and they've been okay on defense. It was just looking at their scores this year. When we talked about that they were able to hang with Euless Trinity, that they were able to take care of Wiley. John Tyler shows though if they stay out of their own way. Like if they don't make mistakes and they don't turn it over and they're going to be very, very difficult to beat. I mean, they really are, and they showed that this week. And of course, I think this is potentially a banana peel game because McKinney North, you're looking ahead at a potential Aledo matchup in the state semifinal, but you got to take care of against McKinney North first.
And tell us a little bit about the penalties for John Tyler.
Yeah, they continue to rack up. They've got over 1,000 penalty yards now this year, averaging about 10 penalties a game, and it's something they definitely want to cut down on because when you're playing a team like Aledo, you're not going to be able to make that many mistakes and win.
Yeah, and so this Friday they play at Apogee Stadium in Denton, 7:30. Again, we'll have coverage of this game as well against McKinney North. And then also Rodney Bendy, wide receiver for John Tyler, is actually going to be playing there next year. Tell us a little bit about this matchup.
It's going to be a great matchup. It's John Tyler's been playing a lot of run teams, and McKinney North is another team with a great running game. That all starts with their running back, Ronald Jones, who he's been recruited by just about every school in the nation. I believe he chose Oklahoma State over the likes of Alabama, Notre Dame, every Big 12 school, every SEC school, Ohio State, all the Big 10 schools. Really, everyone was after him. So he's definitely going to be a big weapon for him. And but they can pass it too. Their quarterback Nick Hutchins, he's thrown for 2,300 yards. So it's a pretty balanced offense.
What will be a key for John Tyler for this victory?
Really, it's going to be slowing down that running back. I think a couple times John Tyler just kind of been slow against the run sometimes. They've got a good defensive line, though, and when they need to, they've stepped up.
Now, John Tyler's been fortunate playing teams and racking up penalties. Is this a team that could really take advantage of those, kind of like you were saying Alito could as well?
Well, definitely. You get this far in the playoffs, you're going to be a pretty good team. That said, I think John Tyler, if they play well, if they do what they're supposed to, they should win this game.
Chris, what do you think about this matchup?
No, I agree with Travis. I believe that, like I said, this is a potential, almost a trap game, which is weird to call a game this late in the season in the playoffs a trap game. But I know they're looking at Alito, and I know that they know that they're probably going to be next, but they need to take care of this team. And if they do what they did against Rockwall Heath, which is pretty much play a flawless first quarter and just dominate them, I just don't see this team be able to take that kind of punch and come back. I think John Tyler, they're not going to, some of these other teams have kind of let teams back into games. I just don't see JT doing that.
Now, you spoke with Coach Holmes this week. How does he feel about this game as well?
He just basically said they got to keep running the ball well. They've been running it really well. They added Nick Kane to the backfield, the receiver, and he had over 100 yards rushing last week. So, if they combine him with Jeremy Wilson, who's got over 1,500 yards, that's going to be a potent 1-2 combo. And, they just got to, obviously don't want to turn the ball over, but you want to keep turning the other team over. They were +3 in the turnover margin last week, and that'll be a big key.
John Tyler, McKinney North. How does John Tyler win? Give us a little prediction.
I believe that their running game is going to be key. And, of course, Gio McAllister has been just fantastic as a quarterback, but I do believe that Wilson is a key. I think he's a guy, he's a game breaker. He's a guy that give him a little bit of a gap, and he can just take it all the way for touchdowns. And he did that against Lee. When I was talking about how not coming back, I think that Lee game really taught them a lot. They have not let teams, because when they had Lee kind of on the ropes, and they let Lee come back to win that game, and we talked about that at the time. And I think John Tyler has grown from that, and they've shown that that's not happening anymore. They're going to make sure that if they have an opponent under control, they're going to keep them there. They need to jump on this team. They do not need to be into a fourth quarter game with a team that's not supposed to win on paper. I think if John Tyler does what they're supposed to do, this should be a victory for them. If it's in the fourth quarter and it's late, that's when things get difficult and get dicey, and that's when things kind of get interesting.
Real quick for you, does John Tyler win this game?
Yes, I do believe John Tyler is playing in the next round, at least.
Travis, you follow the team all year long. Is it going to be a tough win for him? Is it an easy win for him? What's your prediction on it?
I think they can get about a 14-point win.
14-point win. Again, highlights of this game will be on our Twitter and Facebook, ETFinalScore.com. You'll be able to see those. If you cannot make it to the game, Friday night, 7:30, Apogee Stadium in Denton. That is going to wrap up the ETFinalScore.com preview show. We thank you for tuning in with us as East Texas teams are making their run to try and reach that turf field in Arlington, Texas. Stay locked in with us on Facebook and Twitter this Friday night and Saturday afternoon for highlights from some of the top games. Follow both of these guys on Twitter as well. Chris at C. Perry ETFS and Travis at T. Yoasting ETFS. We will see you next week.